Thanks everyone for joining today. Keep introducing yourself if you haven't in the chat already. I think we can go over our agenda, Liza. Great. Well, thanks for joining. We're here for charge. We're getting some updates and opportunities, sharing for electric vehicle charging equipment in your community. So we are fortunate to have Will and Megan with ZEF Energy joining us today, talk about some industry trends on electric vehicle charging, and some updates around the Volkswagen settlement, and some funding opportunities and infrastructure for associated with that. Pete Lindstrom with Clean Energy Resource Teams is going to share information about how to use direct pay funding for government and nonprofit options. And then Jasper and Cassie, welcome, thank you, are going to give some real life examples about installing Volkswagen settlement chargers through the PCA and ZEF in the city of Fosston. So we'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. Feel free to use the chat for asking questions or sharing comments throughout today's presentations. And real quick, I can go to the next slide, Eliza. So we'll share this with you all. We're also recording the webinar, and we'll share a copy of the webinar and slides and presenter contact information and all that good stuff, along with this list of GreenStep cities and tribal nations related actions. So got a few related to electric vehicles in general and charging, specifically around planning and goal setting, fleets, and in public charging infrastructure. So be sure to check those out for more resources, tips, and guidance. And with that, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Kristen Morose, and I'm joined with Eliza Messenger. We are with the GreenStep Cities and Tribal Nations program at the Pollution Control Agency. And we are fortunate to have you all presenting with us today to talk about this. So we'll hand it over to Megan and Will. So I believe you'll be able to share your screen.
Yes, I think Will is hot on the case here, pulling things up. Good morning, everyone. I was sort of late to speak up about some of my preferences. I don't just listen to Journey in the car, but it is maybe a pleasure I indulge in from time to time, and but it's fun to see everyone's answers. So thanks for joining today. And so I'm Megan Hoye. I'm Chief Development Officer with ZEF Energy, and Will is our Sales and Development Coordinator. I'm only saying that just because I think he's busy using his eyeballs and clicks. So let's see. Once we get that. There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Will.
Perfect.
So having introduced ourselves already, well, let's just dive into things and we'll go to the next slide. So, and actually, I will pause to say that I'm going to share with you a little bit about trends and some grant funding opportunities, just as Kristen said. Just want to share a little bit about who we are, and we've been around for 10 years, and so you know, we have been making some changes and strides in the last year or two that you know, especially being headquartered in Minnesota, you know, times they are a change, and so giving you the latest and greatest here too. So yeah, really our core value proposition as a company, so you can just understand who we are a little bit and where we're coming from, is total asset management solution. And I'll say a little bit more about that, but essentially providing the most tools and capabilities as well as transparency, not just from getting your charger set up and on the ground, but that long relationship you have with that piece of equipment and the opportunity to provide charging to drivers, whoever your drivers are, the public, your fleet, your employees, and so forth. And so being able to provide some really extensive transparency is where we're at, and where we're going even deeper. And providing a total experience of offerings for all different use cases, and really focus on quality, flexible, and future-proof products, with a lot of the modular options that we have, so you can really feel good about making that investment. So go ahead, Will, and go to the next slide. So just really quickly, there are different EV charging vendors and solutions out in the world, and we are one of them. We are headquartered in Minneapolis. Again, been around for 10 years. But some vendors or solution providers, provide one or two of these, sometimes more. But we provide a very full stack, or very vertically integrated is one other way of saying that. And so we're providing really high quality hardware, manufacturing our own level 2s in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So very proud of that. Not only US made, but Midwest made. The asset management platform that provides networking operations, service transparency and reporting, kind of getting into that total asset management piece that I was speaking of. Driver experience, being able to provide a point of sale as well as 24/7, 365 driver support, so a full suite of options of how you interact with the driver there. And then Service Plus, so different service packages so you can feel good about your uptime and reliability of a product down the road, which I think is always been something that the industry has needed. And because reliability has been an issue, and the industry's been turning there more and more, and I think that the station owners are just getting smarter and smarter on that, and the value of that, because again, that's where you're going to spend most of your time, right? is owning this and really wanting to have a great experience for drivers. So next up, just quickly highlighting that we're really focused on driven by quality, reliability, and ownership ease. One thing that's fairly unique about ZEF is that we're not looking to own the charging equipment ourselves. We have tools to help support that, but we want to help communities and businesses, local businesses, invest in themselves, and be able to have future revenue streams and build out assets that are good for their businesses. And so we're trying to help make ownership easy. So we operate in, I believe it's 43 states, meaning we're nationwide, but we have deployments in 43 states. And we have a nationwide network of partners, over 60 partners, which I can speak to a little bit more as well. But we're really, really driven by one of our core values as a company is doing the right thing. So a lot of utility and community relationships, over 5,500 chargers deployed nationwide. So with that, enough background kind of into the trends of the industry. So I think, we're kind of used to seeing graphs that go up. We even, joke about that sometimes within our own team, which is good, usually, graphs going up. But at a national level, we continue to see adoption advance, and kind of been looking at 35% growth in the EV charging industry. In the EV automotive industry, that's how much growth has been happening. But this last year, we really outpaced that. So we're seeing essentially like a 40% increase, 2021 to 2022, 60% increase in the purchase of electric vehicles. This is all electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, and battery electric vehicles from 2022 to 2023. And then this first quarter of 2024 was actually outpacing the Q1 of last year by 25%. So the hockey stick is leaning up. We're kind of on that hockey stick, and it's leaning up even further. And looking at our state specifically, 62,000 battery electric vehicles in the state of Minnesota alone. That doesn't include the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So we're looking at 100,000 electric vehicles in the state, and this is as of January of this year. That's really exciting. We're kind of breaking through our own first ceiling, if you will, or a second ceiling, but exciting to see that. And obviously the densest ownership of those vehicles is in the metro area, but it's fun to see it moving beyond that. So next slide. So, as a company, we do a lot of work in rural areas. It is one of our core competencies. We do a lot of collaborating with local governments and utilities across the country, but certainly in more rural areas. And one of the things that we do get asked about by communities is, well, if we were to invest in or even help businesses bring EV charging stations into the community, what does that look like? And there's a lot of questions and answers to get into there. And this focuses specifically on DC fast charging, but this gives you a 12-month view, the last essentially 12 months of what DC fast charging looks like at 7 different locations across Minnesota, and I included Hudson just over the border. So you're getting a smattering. You can see the two, the dotted navy line, the dark blue line that pops up a little higher is in Minneapolis. It's actually kind of in the University of Minnesota area in Minneapolis. And that charger, as well as the dotted orange line, are 150 kW, but the rest of these chargers are 50 kW chargers. And you can see that there's a little bit of seasonality. You can see a kind of a light hump, if you will, in that late summer and early fall, where we do tend to see more charging. Although there are certain parts of the state where actually you see more charging in the winter because people need to charge more often if they're on the road, so that happens. But we're really kind of seeing between 50 and 60 charging sessions per month. Which is really exciting. When we go back a year, we were looking at more of a 30 to 40. And so we're seeing that increase over time. And this just gives you a nice, way of viewing a number of those. In more urban areas like in Minneapolis, we're seeing about 130, 140 charging sessions per month. And when you have a larger charger, a faster charger, so like those 150 kW or something to that effect, you will see more utilization typically. So we've seen that pop up when we added more power to the Elbert Lee location, for example. So I want to share that. There's a lot going on this slide, and you guys will be able to have these slides after the fact, so you can stare at this a bit more if you'd like. But what does public charging station utilization look like? And again, focusing on DC fast charging here, and looking at this from like a public or a corridor charging standpoint. Obviously, there are fleet needs as well, and beyond. But this gives you kind of a typical sense of the times of day when charging is happening for DC fast charging in Minnesota. And so you can see there's a little window, dotted white line around the area where the majority of charging is happening, when the majority of energy is being consumed. And typically that does not align with peak power times. 6 p.m. definitely questionable there, but there's still a hump in the morning, but that is actually, this is very typical. This has continued to persist over a number of years. So that is helpful when you're thinking about rates and how to work with utilities and how charging stations can bring benefit, and also that there's you can manage around this from a utility standpoint, because you're not just looking at adding to peak power congestion on the grid or the purchase price of that cost of that power. So below you can see a little bit of just some And interesting data points as well. Usually we see about 28 to 60 kWh per DCFC. That's a little bit of a wonky, more of an energy person or a utility person number, but we usually use between 30 and 50 as kind of the average consumption per charging session, no matter the speed, really. And then kind of year over year growth that we saw in 2022 to 2023 was about 150% growth in the quantity of charging sessions per month. And then we saw, I actually believe that's a type, no, that's right, 225% year over year growth over the last year. So really, again, a lot of like bending more vertically in that growth. Thanks, Will. And then, just lastly to say that what our partner network is a network that we work with very closely of installers, engineers, project management entities, grant writing support, including support that we bring ourselves. So we work with partners, communities, businesses as needed, and we bring in partners as needed, so you can have kind of the full value or whatever your project needs. So we want to be able to fit that, bring that total asset management, and then really hitting excellent uptime and driver experience because of the asset management and service level agreements that we have. So really driving at a total confidence of what we're delivering, and it's working. So with that, I think Will's going to speak a little bit about the VW settlement grant opportunity that we have going on too.
Nope. There we go. Thanks, Megan.
No problem.
Appreciated the introduction. I was apparently it's been a while since I've used Zoom. I had to give the computer all its permissions for screen sharing again. So thanks for everyone's patience. Yeah, so this is really exciting. I'm the I think Megan mentioned it. I'm the sales and project developer for ZEF. Most of my work involves this MPCA grant program that we've been rolling out these past few years, I suppose, but with much more intensity these past few months. But it's a really exciting opportunity, and I was really excited when Megan looped me in here to present on this portion. This slide gives kind of an overview of what exactly our grant program is. It's all throughout the state of Minnesota. We were awarded a grant by the MPCA to install EV fast charging hubs at 33 sites around greater Minnesota. So that's the phase 2 of those Volkswagen settlement funds that we were talking about earlier. We were able to get a portion of that from the MPCA, and that's what's actually covering this grant money. So as you can see on the map, there's corridors identified by the MPCA. It's a little confusing. You never, like, there's corridors going over corridors, but I promise you we're making it work. Each site winds up being about 30 to 70 miles apart from one another. So it's bringing fast charging to Minnesota. It's bringing accessible fast charging to Minnesota. There's not just like one fast charger in the whole northwest quadrant of Minnesota. We're trying to put like a couple fast chargers in the northwest quadrant of Minnesota. So each grant covers about $69,500, or about $70,000. If any of you have ever gotten an email that says $70,000 available for your city's EV charging project, it's not a scam, I promise. It's true, and it's really cool. So a couple other cool things to note. Our sites are actually future-proofed with a minimum of 2 DCFC plugs and 2 level 2 plugs. The level 2 plugs are that ZEFnet Pro that I think Megan mentioned. It's actually manufactured right here in Minnesota. And our minimum for the DCFCs is 50 kW, but we use a unit called ChemPower, which actually makes it really easy. I mean, it's not super easy for us to get up to 600 kW, but it's possible to get up to 600 kW, and it would be very attainable for us to get up to like 150 kW with not too much effort. So sites are constructed with potential to add more ports as demand grows. They're also ADA accessible. We build them out to make sure we have that. And the goal of the project is to be completed by June 2025, unless it's extended. So here's a few examples of sites that we've actually installed in the past year. Let's see, the top right is the city of Glencoe. The top left is the city of Fosston, and the bottom left is the city of Warroad. I'm a little biased. I think the sites look awesome. But you can kind of see an example of our equipment on the top left here. That's the ZEFnet Pro unit that I was mentioning that's manufactured here in Minnesota. That's our level 2. And then if you look in the top right photo, you can see that ChemPower DCFC unit. I love these ChemPowers. I think they're small, they're easy on the eyes, and they do a really good job charging. They're really efficient, and I just think they look cool. They're also weatherproof units. They're actually originally ChemPower is a Finnish company, so they certainly know how to handle the elements. They build their stuff to handle the elements, so they'll fit in really well here in Minnesota. We have a number of a lot more tentative installs this year. We've got just to name a few: Granite Falls, Malacca, Laverne, Medelia, La Crescent, and then International Falls, Park Rapids, and Silver Bay. We're hoping to get all those in for sure by the end of the year, and hopefully more. We'll kind of see what happens. And like I said, you guys will get these slides, or like Megan said, you guys will get these slides afterwards. So if you want to take a closer look at the these photos, you will definitely be able to do that. So yeah, current opportunities. There's still opportunity to benefit from these grant funds. We got a whole list of communities we're still looking for additions in. As you can see a little asterisk at the bottom here, we've had notable development in the communities of Aiken, Brainerd, Jackson, and Crookston. Would love to hopefully add those to our install list here at some point. But reach out if you think your community may be interested. On the right here, you can see there's a really nice looking list of communities that we're like actively searching in. And honestly, that's not even all of them. There's still quite a few more. So we welcome collaboration from cities, businesses, and or utilities is great. Collaboration from cities especially is really cool just because of this direct pay program that Peter's going to talk about. Not going to step on your toes, Peter, don't worry. But we think this is a really awesome opportunity. Obviously you'll hear the perspective more from Jasper and Cassie in a little bit. But yeah, reach out if you think your community may be interested. I'll pass it back over to Megan here.
Great. This is just to say that I want to get on to Peter, but that we do support on various grant funding programs that are out there. NEVI, CFI help facilitate people getting together to organize, to put in grant applications, helping put them together and so forth. So we can answer questions about that later. But Peter, off to you.
Thank you, Megan. And Will, you are welcome to step on my toes anytime you want. That was fantastic. I'm going to share my screen here and boom. Hopefully you all can see that. Good morning, everybody. Peter Lindstrom from the Clean Energy Resource Teams. I've had the pleasure of working with many of you on the call today. And before I launch into direct pay for EV charging, I just want to step back and kind of bounce off of Megan. You were showing that a hockey stick of a chart showing the growth of EVs, and I think a large part of that is going off of the EV tax credits that are now available. And so I just want to make sure everybody on the call today is aware of the tax credits for the electric vehicles themselves. Understanding that, well, it's been in place for a while, $7,500 for your standard vehicle, or $40,000 for your larger vehicles. With these new income qualifications put in place thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act a few years ago, $150,000 income limitation if you're filing single, 300,000 for couples, and then a few conditions on the vehicles themselves on where they are manufactured. All right, so getting to the tax credit for charging, this is super exciting. So it's 30C is the tax credit in the code 30C, and that's the alternative fuel vehicle refueling property credit tax credit. So 30% if you're an individual, 30% of the cost up to $1,000. And if you're a business, and I would include here now, I would include a nonprofit or a non-tax-paying entity, 6%, unless you pay prevailing wages and meet the apprenticeship requirements, and then it goes up to 30%, up to this maximum, pretty healthy maximum there of $100,000. So what does that mean? We're talking about EVs, and that certainly qualifies 110%, but also you can be used for these other fuels as well: ethanol, natural gas, hydrogen, biodiesel. And so I just wanted to also put up this part of the slide here that says, well, what exactly does it actually cover? And it does cover the product itself as well as installation. That's a frequently asked question. Is installation included? It is included. There are some restrictions, and wow, talk about a wild looking slide here. So the restrictions are that it must be in a rural area or low income area. And you can see that there's a super handy map. If you just Google the 30C tax credit eligibility locator, it'll be the first thing that comes up at the Department of Energy. And you can see in Minnesota, the eligible areas are everywhere that has a color associated to it. So with the exception of some suburban areas in Minneapolis, St. Paul, as well as some other areas, I would say, put it this way, a vast majority of Minnesota is covered under this tax credit, but I wouldn't assume that the area you're thinking about is covered. So go to this website. We'll include a link as a follow-up, 30C tax credit eligibility locator. And it's very easy to use. You just put in your address of where you're thinking about putting in the charger, and it'll, you click on it and it'll tell you if it's eligible or not. And just so you can see, vast majority of Minnesota, you're good to go. I thought I'd zoom in here on the Twin Cities area and show that it really does depend on that census tract. And so you can see that kind of the gray or that mustard color are areas that are covered. Certainly the areas in green are covered, but not everywhere in the Twin Cities is covered. So important to punch in that address and see if you qualify for this tax credit or this direct payment or elective pay. Elective pay, direct pay, it's means the same thing. It's a direct payment from the federal government that is now available for this tax credit and other renewable energy tax credits for non-tax paying entities. That's me. I'm happy to answer any questions about elective pay, direct pay, this tax credit, either during this webinar or at a later time. Short and sweet from my side of things. I'll kick it back to the rest of my presenters. Am I turning it over to the city folks? Here comes Cassie.
Yeah, I think as far as I know, we're good to turn it over to Jasper and Cassie.
Sounds good. Thanks, Will. Do you want me to share my screen with the slides?
Yeah, that'd be great if
Yeah,
you
go
can.
for it.
Okay. Did that work?
Yep.
Excellent. You can see the slides?
Yep, looks good, Jasper.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and proceed. So my name is Jasper Schneider. I'm the general manager of the Northern Municipal Power Agency, and we're headquartered in Thief River Falls, Minnesota, in the northwest part of the state in Pennington County. And we are, in our public power world, we're called a joint action agency. And so we're a wholesale provider of electricity and power delivery to 12 municipalities, 10 of which are in northwest Minnesota, and then we serve 2 North Dakota communities as well. And so being public power utilities, we're in the business of selling electricity, and we recognize the tremendous load opportunity and growth potential with EV adoption. But more importantly than just selling power, we believe that utilities have a leadership role to play with all things electric. And if people are going to be plugging stuff in, we found that it's better for the utility to be engaged on it and provide that as a service for the members that we all serve. And so 3 or 4 years ago, our board, who really deserves a lot of the credit, recognized, I think, the vision of we need to deploy a public EV charging network in our service area. We took a look at the EV maps, and northwest Minnesota was more or less kind of an EV charging desert. And as you know, if you drive an EV and you pull up your app and look for public power or public charging station and you don't see one, you're really going to have some trepidation about going to those areas. And so there's a tourism aspect. We've got Lake of the Woods, we have the lakes areas. We have folks from Winnipeg come down, Fargo, Minneapolis. And so getting some charging infrastructure into our service area was absolutely critical. And so a little bit more about who we are. I mentioned we're a joint action agency. We're actually the oldest one in Minnesota. We became incorporated in 1976. We also form what we call the joint system. So we partner with Minn Kota Power Cooperative, which is a cooperative G&T that serves 11 rural electric distribution co-ops, also in the same service area as we do. And so collectively, we serve 160,000 meters up and down the Red River Valley in both North Dakota and Minnesota. And so kind of recognizing the opportunities for EVs, we also knew that we needed to help it along. This was kind of timing with the opportunity with the Volkswagen settlement with round 2. We actually had one of our communities in the first round in Grafton, North Dakota, was successful and installed a public power EV charger from ZEF through those grant opportunities. And in the second round, we wanted to make sure that we competed. And we took a look at the map that ZEF provided on the travel corridors and recognized that our cities fell squarely in what the intent of the grant dollars were. And so we partnered with ZEF Energy on that effort. Our board of directors authorized an NMPA grant of $10,000. And the thought there was anything we can do to help either subsidize the process or help further leverage other grant opportunities. We wanted to nudge our communities to encourage them to move along. And so the ultimate vision, I think, of our joint action agency is to get public charging stations in each one of our communities. And a few years into this effort, 5 of our communities either have operational ZEF charging stations or have them installed and are soon close to being fully operational. I think in all candor, I think one of the challenges that we've had in executing the strategy was, right when these grant opportunities became available, we were hit with workforce issues and high inflation, supply chain issues, right? That all led to inflated costs, delay in product, and also ultimately delayed, I think, getting the overall strategy implemented. But one of the communities that we worked with that really were one of the leaders, and I mentioned we've got 5 of them, but one of them who's on the call today is Cassie Heide from the city of Fosston, Minnesota. Fosston's in Polk County. Cassie serves on the NMPA board of directors, but also is the city administrator in Fosston. And one of the things I credit Cassie with is that while we as an agency had the vision, it really took that local leadership to pick up the ball and run and get it implemented and figure out the costs and navigate local politics. And we're pleased to report that Fosston is one of those communities that has an operational public power ZEF charging station. And I think as we look forward to the future, I think as an agency, we continue to encourage our communities to seek funding opportunities. We're constantly looking for flexibility in grant programs, additional grant opportunities, because ultimately the vision is to get one of these installed in each one of our communities to help encourage the adoption of EVs, but also, to my original point, making sure that as utilities that we're playing a leadership role in this effort. So that's a little bit about who NMPA is and what our effort was. I'm going to turn it back over to Cassie to talk a little bit more about local implementation and some of the successes and hurdles that they had at the Fosston level.
Thanks, Jasper. As Jasper mentioned, my name is Cassie Heide. I'm the city administrator for the city of Fosston. We own our electric utility, natural gas, and water, sewer, garbage, cable TV. And so that is part of my role as well. And I'm honored to serve on the board of directors for Northern Municipal Power Agency. We quickly raised our hand when we heard about the MPCA grant that we could apply for. And so we did that and were awarded. And to my knowledge, Fosston was the first MPCA grant recipient for the phase 2. And we were able to get our charging station up and at the end of July of last year. So as Will talked about, we have the nice ZEF Pro Level 2 and then the Kempower DC fast charger. And we had a ribbon cutting event for that on August 1st. We really celebrated the fact that we got this in our community. Fosston is located on US Highway 2 between Grand Forks and Bemidji, Crookston on the closer side on the west side. So we really felt that it was important for our community to have the charging available for travelers along US Highway 2. And after the grant, of course, there was still that local share. NMPA's $10,000 grant made that sell all the easier. We were able to bring those local costs down and we expensed it out of our electric utility fund. However, we really looked at this as an economic development tool insofar as that we are going to bring travelers into our community. We're literally on the map with the charging tool. Drivers of EV vehicles know that we've got this available in Fosston. They can stop, power up, and get a bite to eat, shop our retailers, and just learn more about our community. So it was really a nice opportunity to get on the map. And as Jasper said, as a utility company, we do feel that we should be leading the charge, so to speak, and we wanted to be in that space, and really happy with it. It's located right across from City Hall, close enough to downtown for people to be able to get out and walk and again, visit our community, see what we've got. You know, the implementation of the equipment and going through the whole grant and everything, I'll say was pretty easy. As Jasper mentioned, there was the supply chain issues and just the inflation. The costs had increased since the grant was awarded. But again, with that NMPA grant, we were able to bring that local share down to kind of buffer that increase that we saw due to inflation. So all in all, it was a huge win in Fosston. We've got a really progressive city council and utilities commission that were really behind it. We go after a lot of grant funding and utilize as much of that as we can. So this was really a no-brainer and was really well received in our community. We've seen a lot of testing vehicles. Highway 2 is used for that a lot. So we've seen a lot of that on our chargers. At our open house, we had a couple local EV owners participate and kind of show people what it looked like to charge those vehicles. Our joint action agency, Minn Kota, they came over. I was able to drive their Ford Lightning. It's just a really fun experience and really helps just be supportive for those EV owners up in northwestern Minnesota, because again, as Jasper said, we were kind of a desert here, and we're happy to be on the map. We're looking at, you know, potentially adding another location. Our hospital has expressed interest in having something there, and so yeah, it's a move in the right direction, and all in all, things went very well for us. So very satisfied.
And
Well, thank
Megan and Will, I think we'd be happy to answer any questions too, if there's time, if folks have them. Otherwise, we'll turn it back to you.
I think the next on the agenda was the Q&A session, so you can open it up to maybe questions for anybody.
Yeah, thank you, Jasper and Cassie. That was great too. Great to hear your on the ground experience. Looks like there's some good resources being shared on the IRA and some of the too. So I can just speak a little bit to maybe some of the you know, there's a lot of grant funding out there right now in from different streams, and it can be kind of cumbersome to navigate, and also not all the grant funding is available for the same areas. And so maybe just starting off with the VW grant money from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency that Will was speaking about. That is something that will go away if it isn't spent in the designated areas, or, you know, there's kind of fungibility, if you will, along certain corridors, but it is intended to be spent in those general areas. And so if it doesn't, we don't find partnership in those areas, the money will kind of go back into a bigger pot of funding a little further down the road. And so we really do want to work with communities to try to make it work, and direct pay, if owned by, you know, a non-paying tax entity, is a great way to help kind of pair that with the grant dollars and make a project, you know, much, you know, extra easy to achieve, which is really exciting. Now, beyond that, there are other grant funds. I would say that they're more challenging to get those funds, like NEVI funding, which is going to be focused on alternative fueling corridors, and in our state, those are pretty limited at this point. And then there's CFI funding, which is the charging, fueling, and infrastructure funding, which is kind of designed more for the non-designated alternative fueling corridors and generally more rural and underserved areas. However, they do need to be facilitated by a public entity, and applications need to be put in by a public entity. We're here to help. Others can be a part of that team. But so that's not just open to anyone. And so they're different flavors. But it really is to help bring charging access up, increase that. And I think that we see the value of bringing the charging infrastructure into the community with indicators or proxies of economic development benefit as well. Stopping in communities, charging sessions going up, local businesses getting spend from stopping in. Convenience stores tend to have kind of metrics of what they say, like they do anticipate that there's spend every time somebody stops in and gets a charge. And so it'd be similar if it was in a downtown area and somebody's going to stop in and get a sandwich and things like that. So we do see those benefits, and then hearing from others about kind of it just aligns with being leaders. We hear that from many communities too. So I just wanted to, I know I kind of skipped over some of the grant funding and the support that we can provide a little bit more. So we're here to help. We work on those grants a lot. We help bring in partners. We can provide guidance and we're tracking them too. So
Megan or Will, what would you suggest to a community? For example, Baudette, which was on your earlier list, which is one of our NMPA communities, or Thief River Falls, which is on the travel.
Yeah.
What would you suggest as a next step to get those cities that are on the map and interested to secure that funding, to your point, before it goes back and gets pooled and to other areas? What would you suggest?
So we would suggest reaching out to Will or myself. Will's kind of the right person to reach out to, say we're interested to learn more. We can talk just a little bit about the grant requirements, and then we can also inform them, help them kind of do a screening or screen with them that you're eligible for direct pay, kind of see where that fits in. And then from there, it's sort of a combination of determining, is there a site host or is the city gonna host on land? And then it's about bringing the partner funding, whether that comes from a city or a business or a combination. Utilities oftentimes going to bring, something of notable or significant amounts of support through the preparations of the site on the transformer side. So I think just letting us know that you're interested in waving that flag, reaching out, that's the good old fashioned talking to one another. That's what we need to help move things forward.
Megan and I love setting up meetings. That's our thing. We can do that for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful.
And thank you, Jasper. That's a good question. Just what's the thing? Yeah. Do others, Peter, I was going to ask you a question on direct pay. Are you seeing communities going through this process yet? And have you heard, kind of in the application process, what that's looking like on the ground? Any stories on that yet?
We are, yeah, it's a great question. The good thing about direct pay is that it's not like a grant that you have to apply for and then you hope that you get, and you're in the mix with a gazillion other organizations and crossing your fingers that you get it. If you do the thing, you will get it. That being said, it's it's the Internal Revenue Service. They're not just going to cut you a check. You do have to make sure that you qualify. Number one, you have to pre-register. You do the project, so you do the installation. It's up and running. Then you have to do a pre-filing with the IRS. They give you a registration number, and then you have to file tax forms, which is, if you're a city or a non-tax-paying entity, that can be new. So there's a certain number of forms you need to fill out. And so, yeah, you're right. Cities, non-tax-paying entities, they're going through this process right now, really for the first time. So I think the good news for folks on this call is that by the time, if you're interested in this opportunity, by the time you're in that same situation, there'll be a number of cities, counties, schools, nonprofits that have already done direct pay, and we'll have lessons learned. So I wish I could say like, it's a piece of cake, it's easy. But I think there's a little work to be done, but it's certainly doable.
There is a question in the chat from Stan Gustafson. He says, we're a nonprofit economic development agency. How does the 30% direct, sorry, cat interference here.
That it works, direct pay generally is 30% of the total cost of the project, even if you are getting a grant. So 100, say, well, it's just for the math is easy, $100,000 project, you get 30% of that, $30,000. There are some qualifications if a grant is involved. So if you, in this case, the project cost is $100,000, you qualify for 30% of that, or $30,000. If you got a grant, we'll say of $80,000, you can get a direct payment up to the cost of the project. So you would, in that example, get a $20,000 direct payment up to $100,000. So you can't make money off of elective pay. That's essentially one way to think of it. Great question. And certainly I'll just throw this out there too, for those of you that are thinking about this. The clean energy resource teams can help you get over the finish line for direct pay. For cities, we have a network of cities that get together regularly, quarterly, as a matter of fact, and we have a work group that is laser focused on elective pay. So you can, if you're interested in participating in that, just shoot me a note and I'll get you looped in on that. But that's helpful because then you're meeting with cities that are in the same boat as you and going through it together. And if you're a nonprofit out there, we're happy to meet with you and provide some guidance as well.
That's great, Peter. If people are interested to get support from GreenStep, from CERTs, or from being a part of that committee, should they reach out to you? What do they do?
Please do so. Yep, I'll drop my contact in the chat here. A few regional coordinators on the line here too. I know Anna is on the line from the Northwest, and I think Heidi's on the call as well from the central part of the state, and they're great contacts as well.
Great. And Will, also you put your contact information in the chat. I saw that.
Yep. Feel free to email me if you're interested.
We'll hopefully as a group, we'll make sure that those contacts are in the slide deck too when they go out, so they don't get lost when we close out the meeting. Yeah, and if people have questions on other grant opportunities or things that are coming up in the state at the national level, and how to get involved in those, or even how to kind of collaborate as a collection of cities, communities, counties, things like that, those are things that we can provide guidance on or support on too. So